You are listening to Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour, a podcast released on the first 3 Wednesdays of the month. Family crisis, relationship crisis, addiction crisis, no two crisis situations are the same. They vary by family, individual, and relationship. They can encompass complex family dynamics, emotional distress, anger issues, and entitlements, and often involve substance abuse. This podcast addresses these issues and others surrounding the addiction epidemic currently plaguing this country and the world. There is hope and help.
Are you stuck, scared, or unsure of what to do next? If a situation with a loved one, spouse, or even a child has started to spiral, possibly becoming dangerous or threatening, it's time to seek help. My name is Scott H. Silverman. I help families navigate crisis situations. I'm the person you turn to in order to get you and your loved ones unstuck.
Welcome back to the show. This is Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour. I'm Michael Glenn Moore, Scott's co-host. Scott, it's been a while since we talked about why you give out your phone number almost every episode and why we started this podcast. Why don't you go ahead and let us know where we're heading and where we've been going all this time.
I will. Michael, it looks like I'm flashing in and out. I don't know what that's about, but hopefully it'll make it kind of cool to draw people's attention. Anyway, welcome everybody. I'm Scott H. Silverman. My phone number is 619-993-2738. Please call or text anytime. Michael, to answer your question, the reason I give out my phone number is I'm always hopeful that somebody will call me and we'll be able to talk about, what's going on and how we might be able to help that family member and get them access to the highest level of care support. And if somebody doesn't know what to do or how to navigate, that's what calling me about, and I just got a call the other day from somebody in Philadelphia, and he's in sober living, and his sponsor told him to call me. So I really enjoyed talking to him and gave him some tips and tricks, mostly shut up and listen. So, it was kind of fun to do that. So I always look in my phone, and when I see a number I don't recognize, I always pick it up. Even if it's a spam call, you never know who it is. Might be, calling for help. So today we have somebody that I know very little about. And I wanted to bring somebody in who, and I've had a couple guests here before who are in what I call my home group, our home group. And that is a group that people in recovery go to on a regular basis to kind of check in and be part of and get some, suggestions, tips and tricks and be part of the process. And that's where I met Kacey. And Kacey Bradley is somebody who, when I watch you share, Kacey, you're always dynamic with your responses, and you sit in the meeting in your kitchen. So we all get to watch you have breakfast, and I watch you make lunch. And I know you do a lot with peanut butter and jelly. And I think I've commented that, I think you like grape jelly and I like strawberry. So I tend to point that out in the chat rooms with people, and I always get in trouble doing that. So anyway, I want to hear from you today, Kacey, about, whatever you want to share about your history, your story, where you've been, where you're at now. And more importantly, why did you say yes? And I remember, I'll share with people when I asked you in the chat room, you said I think you said your stomach tightened, my phraseology of that. And it is a little nerve wracking, but, in my opinion, sometimes the anonymity of program can be not helpful. And I certainly respect people's boundaries. And I know that people don't necessarily always want someone else to know what they're doing. And I've been public for such a long time. I'm comfortable with it, but a lot of people aren't. So I really applaud you for joining us today and talking about whatever you want. And hopefully we'll be able to generate some good conversation, and know that when we're done with this is going to be a 30-minute diary on Kacey, and we're going to send this out to people that you don't know. And whatever information you share, it will be in the public domain as soon as Michael gets done co-producing it in his laboratory. So with that, Kacey Bradley, tell us who you are. Tell us what we need to know to know a little bit about you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for asking me to be on here today. And I want to start with, I do usually do meetings in my kitchen in the morning. And I've found that in my recovery, integrating it into all of the pieces and all the places and spaces of my life is really what helps me stay sober. So I have made my morning routine have my meeting going, and I'm also getting myself ready for the day. And I find really bringing those two things together helps me stay focused, and usually means I have a pretty good day. So, but my name's actually Kacey Mull. So I just changed my name actually, which is a part of my story. I have been married and divorced, and just recently got my name back, and I'm really excited about that. And let's see, I've actually only been in recovery for, it'll be 10 months. We're not supposed to celebrate early, but it'll be 10 months on the 13th. So I'm still pretty new to this whole shindig. And it's really amazing the ways that this has changed me over time. And I think the way that I like to put it is my alcoholism was a subtle foe. It was this thread in my life that was always there and was so subtle in its ways, because I find as I look back on my drinking time, alcohol is so culturally accepted. And so I feel like, because people are drinking at baby showers these days. I went to a work thing a couple weeks ago and there was alcohol, and I was like, we're all on the clock. Like, why are we drinking? Not we, I wasn't drinking, but everyone else is drinking. And it's so interwoven into our cultural spaces. And I think for me, that's what allowed me to hide for so long, and to really stay hidden and to keep my alcoholism at bay. And then things, and that's why I call it a subtle foe, because over time, I think I articulate it, and it ate me in like snack sized pieces. And there was one day, June 13th, 2021, that I woke up. I had celebrated my 34th birthday, and my birthday's on the 6th, and I had celebrated on the 13th at this big hoopla thing at Mission Bay, and ended up in some very questionable situations, and woke up that next morning and was like, my alcoholism has nothing else to eat. Like, there's nothing left for me here. I'm emotionally and spiritually bankrupt, and I have nothing else to give. And I know, and I've known all of my life, that I'm here to, and I think we all are, I'm not special. We have something that we're supposed to be offering to the world, to the universe, however you want to put it. And my alcoholism was keeping me from doing that, because I kept taking the edge off. And I find that in my recovery, that's what this is about for me, is not taking the edge off. I feel every single thing, and it hurts like hell, but the joy is bigger than any that I've felt up until this point. And yeah, there's a person in my home group that says, I think I'll take another 24. And that's usually what I say. I get up, and not every day is easy, and it's been really hard. But the evidence of change is so clear, and I'm not spiritually and emotionally bankrupt anymore. And I owe that all to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I agree with you, Scott. I think the anonymity can really get in our way sometimes. And I am loud and proud that I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I respect the program and the way that it's changed my life, and the way that I see it changing other people's lives in their shares. And it's like this little secret community of people that I really believe its foundations and its teachings are really applicable to all avenues of life. Like, I think we could work the 12 steps on anything. Yeah, so that's a little about me. And thank you so much for asking me to be here.
No,
Cool.
It's great. It's great to have you. And you're already in trouble. I can hear it now when your cohorts here, anonymity and 12 steps. But this is a program about attraction, not promotion, and we're not promoting anything other than recovery, access to treatment, and helping people. And one of the big reasons why, Michael and I fired up this podcast was, before I, finished my book, the opioid epidemic, I was going to a lot of funerals, and I was frustrated with it. And part of my mission in life is not to go to as many funerals. I mean, people unfortunately are going to expire from overdosing, and they're going to expire from driving drunk, and they're going to hurt themselves, and that impacts families. So would you speak a little bit, because families will watch this, and tell us what it was like for you and how your family reacted to when you decided to make a change? What was that like? And how would you craft a message for people that might see this, that have a loved one who's under the influence or might be self-medicating, and they don't know what to do? They because this is a disease of denial. It's a disease of the inability to feel feelings, and it is a family disease. People argue with me sometimes, oh, it's not really a disease. To me, it's just like diabetes. You didn't wake up one morning and say, hey, mom, hey, dad, could I get some alcoholism in my veins so when I grow up, I can get shit-faced every day until I try to kill myself? So tell people what it was like for you and how your family maybe reacted, and what you felt you needed to do, and how others might learn from your experience.
Yeah, so I think it begins, my dad was a raging alcoholic. And that sort of, that's him and my mom were married until I was 8. So, and I really, I know child development tells us that, the first 5 years of life are really when those things, our personhood develops, and a lot of the way that we end up engaging in the world is developed. And so that's the space that I grew up in. And my mother never has struggled with any sort of dependency whatsoever, but she always knew I had a problem, but for my experience, like, I didn't hit rock bottom that most people, no, I don't want to say most, that a lot of people, I didn't lose everything. My life didn't go up in flames, but it would have went up in flames had I not gotten sober. And my mom always knew that, and I think it's important to say also that my mom lives in North Carolina. I was born and raised in North Carolina. And so when my alcoholism really got bad, to the point that it was undeniable to me and those around me, she was 3,000 miles away. But so what to say to families? I agree with you that it's a family disease. And I think this is what I want to say, and people may get upset at me for this, but I feel like when there's alcoholism in a family and people are sick and struggling, I think looking at the dynamics in the family may be the first step. Like, is there something going on that we're not talking about or looking at? And I know, this is a hard question to answer because it is so complex and it's so subjective. It's like, it depends on who you are, where, your family, like what's your normal day look like? What's your upbringing like? What's your socioeconomic status? Like, there's so many pieces and complexities to answering this question. And maybe I'll go with that instead and say that I think it's individual to your family. And reaching out to get help for someone that can come in and look at what's going on and say, what are the reasons that this person felt like, why is my brother or my mother or my cousin, like, why are they seeking out alcohol? Like, why are they seeking out drugs? Like, and looking at the why behind why someone is doing these things to themselves, because nobody wants to be an addict. And then the other thing that's coming to me is isolation. So our disease festers in isolation. And I think a lot of times in families, the alcoholic, the addict is isolated. They are lonely in their disease. But then again, it's hard because how many chances do I give my son? Like, he's running around and doing all of these things. And it's a hard question to answer, Scott. Because it's so complex and it's so individualized to families. Get help, reach out to someone who knows more than you, reach out to Scott and I think bringing people into the situation is better than pushing it out. And that's a piece I think that's coming forth in my mind too, is that when we are struggling, when our families are struggling, a lot of times we do pull in tight and we act like there's not an issue when there is an issue. So not being afraid to ask for help and to reach out and to be honest about what's going on, because that's the first step. That's the first step in really helping someone figure out how to recover and to find themselves again, because that's what recovery is about, is finding ourselves, finding our connection to source and recovering from there.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
stuff. By the way, Michael's trained me to never ask the easy questions. So, I like to think I've gotten better at it. So tell us, how did you start your recovery process? What did it look like? Were you handcuffed in a gurney in an ER, or did somebody pick you up, take you to a meeting? Did you go? So let people know, how did you enter into recovery? Because I think it's different for everyone, but generally the level of pain, unfortunately, is common when we pivot and we take that that turn. And you said it, the three hardest words in the English language is I need help. And I got to tell you, 9 out of 10 phone calls that I get for help, it's not from the person who's under the influence and self-medicating. It's from a family member who has no idea what to do and how fed up they are. I just talked to a family this week. Their son is 34, and they're describing the behavior. So I asked, how long has this been going on? And she said 10 years. I said, so 10 years you've been living in hell?
Right. There it is.
She
Yeah.
said, yeah, I've been living in hell, and he's been living in hell. I said, would you like to move out of that cave? And
Yeah.
her answer was, of course. I don't know what to do. And his father and I are concerned, and he looks horrible. And so, I gave her some ideas and suggestions and some referrals and some, and I said, you have to take care of you as well, because if you're not better and you don't love yourself. And she admitted she hasn't taken a minute to herself in 10 years. She's been so nervous. I said, look, pressure bust pipes. And if you're not taking care of you, you could be the one who ends up suffering more than your son, and you're both suffering. So why continue? You have a choice. And that's what I really wanted to emphasize to her. So back to you. What got you into recovery?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like I don't have like a arm chain to the gurney type of story, but I love what you said about the pain being something that everyone can understand, because I was in a lot of pain, and I think
Would you mind sharing what that means? Because I want
yeah,
people, when you
yeah,
use the word and I use the word, it's common for us, but for people that maybe don't get it,
yeah,
when you use the word pain, be as specific as you can, and as comfortable as you can sharing it, because I think people need to hear. I mean, you're getting ready to come up on 10 months of recovery. I've got a few decades, but it doesn't really matter, because if we're not working on if I'm not working on my recovery every day, I'm going to have difficulty. And it's like diabetes. If you're not checking your blood sugar level and taking your insulin and watching your diet and exercising, you will get sick, and you will get sicker. So that is how common, the parallels are between those two different diseases. You don't get a choice, but if you have it and you manage it, you can live a normal life, happy, joyous, and free.
yes,
So
absolutely. Yeah. And I love that you brought that up, because it is true. Like, pain that day was waking up, my mouth was like super dry, and I still had my clothes on from the day before. I had, I had been out at the beach all day, so I was like, you probably could have like scraped my skin and gotten sunscreen off of it, and I was sunburned, and my hair was just a hot mess. And I remember walking into the bathroom and like looking at myself in the mirror and just thinking, what is, like, who is this person? I felt numb. I felt disconnected from, I'm a very embodied person, and I was before my alcoholism got really, really bad. And I am now. Like, so I'm very in tune with myself and with other people. And I was so disconnected and just so numb about everything. And I realized in that moment, I'm telling myself again, everything's fine. And it's like, no, Kacey, not everything's not fine. Like, look at yourself, like, look at what's going on. And I had left my boyfriend. He had said, "You're so drunk, Kacey, you need to come home." And I was like, "Woo, no, not gonna do that." Ended up running around till 3, 4 in the morning, snorting lines of cocaine up my nose at some random person's house that I didn't know, and having conversations that nobody ever is going to remember ever again. And it was just the flashbacks of those things happening in my mind, and knowing that for the whole week leading up to that birthday celebration, I was like, okay, we're going to keep it in line. I'm not going to lose my cool. just going to have a couple drinks and we're going to have fun, this is a story that's so similar in so many ways to other people's stories. Like, you think I thought I could control it. And no, it never worked. It never worked. And, my boyfriend was super pissed off at me. He was so angry at me that morning. He wouldn't even look at me. So the pain was loneliness. It was disconnection. It was numbness. It was, I felt like just this like dried up raisin of a person, like not even a person anymore. I don't know if that answers your question. It's hard to articulate because it's so like the feeling part of it is so overwhelming that it almost is beyond words. It's almost hard to explain. The word done, like I'm done with this. Like that's the pain. Like I literally cannot do this anymore. It's too painful to keep doing it. It's too painful to not be doing it, but I have to do something different. And that's when I randomly saw a post on Instagram of a woman that was a yoga teacher at one of the studios that I used to go to. And I just randomly, and now I know it wasn't random. Like God definitely put that in my path of, she posted about being sober for 14 years. And so I reached out to her, and she's my sponsor today. And she got me to my home group. She told me about it, and I just got in the middle of the herd, and I've tried to stay there as best I can. And I do what these people tell me to do, even though I'm the biggest rebel and stubborn person that I know. So, yeah.
Well, now that you know me, you're in second place. So in summary, you turned into a raisin. Good. Now let's take that raisin and share what steps did you take to get help? I mean, or what did steps that others around you to help you get help? How did you enter into the recovery process? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I think it was just those three magic words, like reaching out to someone and saying, I need help. Like that's the first step. Like I have to admit I need help before I can get help at all.
Okay.
I had to stop telling myself I was okay. So I reached out and said, I need help. Second of all, I listened to what people told me to do. There's this meeting that meets at this time every single day. Go to that meeting. Okay. I went to the meeting. I followed directions. So I said, I need help. I followed directions, even when I didn't want to, because I was so done. Like I knew something had to change. And I think at this stage, there's people that have, like you, that have decades of sobriety. Like I'm still doing what people tell me to do. I'm listening to my sponsor. I'm calling people when she tells me to call them. I'm doing contrary action, which is a term that's used in AA a lot, but it just means doing something I don't want to do. Because I know and trust that I see the change in all these other people, and I want that for myself. So I need to do what they did. So those are the two big things. I need help and follow directions.
Yeah. Another way of looking at that is if my brain tells me to take a right turn, if I make a left, I'm going to be heading in the right direction.
Right. Opposite of what I want to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like to share that my brain's like a bad neighborhood and I never go there alone. So let me push you a little bit. Did you just walk into a meeting one day on a suggestion, or did you, because one of the things that, I don't know if you know or not, but I run a treatment center, and, we believe that one size does not fit all, and everybody enters into, getting help a different way. I mean, hopefully they get some, and, it's free to go to a meeting or Zoom, and treatment usually takes insurance. So it's different, but it's more structured. There's more education, there's more support, from a therapeutic clinical perspective. And some people need that, especially if you have underlying issues that have gone untreated. And I don't really know anybody in today's world that doesn't have underlying issues that are generally going untreated unless they're getting treated. So how did you, get introduced to recovery? Is what I'm saying is did you walk into a meeting? Did you go to treatment? Did somebody call you? Did you get a nudge from the judge? I mean, there's all kinds of different ways people get into recovery and treatment. So what was your vessel or your challenge?
Yeah, of course. So looking back on it, it's so integrated, and so like there's so much synchronicity. And I think that's the way I see like the divine working in my life, my higher power. I worked worked at this nonprofit for people with severe mental illness, and we had a substance abuse specialist that was on my team, my interdisciplinary team that I worked on. And so when I decided that I wanted to get sober, I went to her and said, I need help. Can you, can you take me to a meeting? Because I had connected, actually that happened before I reached out to my now sponsor. I'm sorry, I'm getting that chronologically wrong. So she was the first person. I went to her and I said, I know she was in recovery. She's an NA. I said, I am terrified to go to a meeting. Can you take me to a meeting? So she took me to, it was a full week. We went to like 3 or 4 meetings, and I went to the NA meetings, and I didn't feel, it was a good way to like get me in. She like introduced me to people, so I didn't feel like I was alone. And then after that is when I got the courage to reach out to my now sponsor, who directed me to my home group. So yeah, it was the hand. Someone reached out a hand to me and said, I'll walk into this meeting with you. And I remember saying out loud for the first time that I was an alcoholic, and I thought like I was gonna just like explode if the words like came out of my mouth. But they came out. I didn't explode. And that was the first step for me, is just asking for help, taking someone's hand. And she's such a wonderful woman. And that's, that the hand of AA was there, ready to reach out and pull me in and say, here we are. This is what we got. You can have it or you don't have to have it. No one's going to force you, but we're here and we'll love you till you figure out how to love yourself. And that's been my experience.
Okay. One more question, then I'm going to turn it over to Michael.
Okay.
What question have I not asked you that you'd like me to ask you?
I don't know if it's a question or just now I like feeling like I know the audience that's going to be watching this, and just to say to them, like, I love you. And there are people that love you and that want to love you. Whether it's the person who's struggling with the addiction or the family members who are struggling with it. And like you said so beautifully, Scott, it is a family disease. And I believe the one thing I've learned in being part of recovery is that community is where we heal. And it's not just from addiction. Community helps us heal from that. But I think in all facets and all complexities of life, like, we heal when we are together, and our society is more isolated than it's ever been. And I just want to say that I have a lot of love, and that there's a lot to be shared.
Great.
Yeah, I'm not good at coming up with questions to be asked.
That's okay. As long as we get the information we're seeking. Michael, what's on your mind, brother?
I have an observation. Something Kacey said at the very beginning when she was talking about the anonymity of AA and all the anonymous programs, about people not wanting you to maybe be honest about it and be forward. AA was started in 1935. So at the time, alcoholism was a taboo subject. You just didn't talk about it. And so they had to do anonymous because they wouldn't get the people to come to the meetings and so forth. But now, almost 100 years later, it's gotten to a point where people are being more honest and coming out and saying, here I'm in the program, and I want to tell you why, because I think you could, if you had this problem, something I might say could help you. And to me, that says a whole lot. And I think that's where Kacey is now. And in her 10 months, she's able to, already talk about what AA means to her, because she's had it, had that experience, and it's filled a void in her life and really helped her out. I just want to commend you, Kacey, for your strength and to coming on the show and talking about it and being honest with us, especially since you're so new at the game. And I really appreciate you and all you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so you have a quote to seeing us out?
I do. So this is what we would call the 9th step promises, and it is from the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it goes like this. If we are painstaking about this phase of our recovery, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.